Welcome in another important video in our React.js course. I hope you all are doing great. So in this video we will learn about what is JSX and why it is so important in React.js. JSX stands for JavaScript XML, and this is a markup language that React.js developers introduced in order to write HTML and JavaScript code together. So we have XML, we have HTML, we have a bunch of other markup languages. So all markup languages do the same thing. They basically hold some important data such as keywords, names, sometimes tags. This information computer can easily access and get useful data out of it. Markup languages also helps to share data between different entities. React.js developers created JSX format so that we can write JavaScript and HTML code together and create our website. So now before we learn about JSX, now we got to understand why do we need to write JavaScript inside HTML. So now if we look at the traditional way of writing any website, so we used to create one HTML file like I did here in this folder. I have created one simple HTML file and I have also created one JS file. So JS file will basically hold all JavaScript code and HTML file will hold all HTML code. Now this is the simple example. I am trying to create one heading tag and I want to allocate value to this span dynamically. So that's the reason why I have given one ID to this span tag so that I can select this ID and put inner HTML inside of it. So that's the same thing what I did in index HTML. I have selected that span tag and I am using inner HTML attribute in order to put data inside of it. Okay, so with this way we'll be able to see some message and we can add custom names inside of it, right? So if I open this website and you can see we got one message and this variable is coming from JavaScript. This is the traditional way to create web pages, right? But if we look at whenever I run this HTML file, ultimately our JavaScript and HTML is getting combined together. So why do we write HTML and JavaScript separately? So now previously we used to write it because we wanted to keep our code separate, clean and easy to understand so that we can easily debug errors in our code. Earlier there was no easy way to write JavaScript inside of HTML. So if you want to write JavaScript inside of HTML, you have to put script tag each time, then you will have to write variables, then you will have to declare functions, and then you will be able to print some values inside of it. So this syntax certainly becomes more complex and not that readable, right? So that's exactly why React.js developers come up with an idea of JSX where they are using one markup language and that markup language helping React.js to understand whether that code is JavaScript or that is simple HTML. So let's see why do we use JSX, right? React.js embraces the fact of rendering logic instantly coupled with UI logic. We just saw one example where we try to print some variables inside our HTML. So with the help of JSX, we'll be able to do this, achieve the same results in very short syntax. Okay. After developing JSX, React.js developer did one survey and they found that a lot of people who used JSX, they actually found it too much helpful. Okay, for those who have been writing JS and HTML code separately, they will not find JSX too much easy, but if they keep on practicing with JSX, they will certainly get used to with this syntax and they start loving it. Alright, so that's the reason why we should use JSX. And also along with JSX, we get a lot of other benefits. So let's see all of those one by one. So the first benefit that we get using JSX is embedding expressions in JSX. So we just saw the same example using our traditional way. We created one HTML file and now we wanted to load custom name inside of HTML. So we have to write selector and then we have to use inner HTML syntax to print this variable. So now if you compare this syntax with JSX syntax, which is this, so here they have declared one simple JavaScript variable using const keyword and they are trying to print this inside of HTML tag. Now this is much simpler than what we did earlier, right? So now that's the benefit we get with the help of JSX. It helps us embedding expressions inside of JSX. So if you want to put any JavaScript valid syntax inside HTML, you just have to write curly braces and then you can write valid JavaScript syntax inside of it. Now this JSX syntax get ultimately converted into this React.js syntax. In a documentation, they have given some more examples, such as here they have created one function to just concatenate first name and last name of the user, and they are returning that through this function. So now in JSX syntax, we just have to put hello and this curly braces, and we just have to call this function. So the first name and last name will be concatenate through this function. Okay, so you can definitely try it out using this code pin. So now let's move on to next benefit that we get using JSX, and that is nothing but JSX is an expression too. Now what does this mean is, now let's say if you want to condition some user interface in your application. Now condition is depend on some variables. Here they have given one example of function. So here we have declared one function and we are passing one parameter through it, and value is valid, that is it is not null or it is not empty. So in that case we want to print username, otherwise we will simply return hello stranger. So in this way you can condition your user interface and you can put your own conditions inside of it, right? So that's the benefit we get with the help of JSX. If we scroll it a little bit down, another benefit we get using JSX is specifying attributes with JSX. So every HTML tag has multiple attributes and its value sometimes not static. If you want to make any attribute dynamic, so you can use this condition. And like we saw in our earlier examples, we just have to put curly braces to write JavaScript variable or JavaScript syntax. As you can see in this example, they are using image. They are loading source of image dynamically. With this way, we can change attributes in JSX syntax. Again, we get benefit of specifying children's with JSX. In JSX, we can put one parent container, and inside of it we can write multiple headings tags or whatever the user interface you want to write. So with this way you'll be able to write multiple children elements inside one parent element. So that's the benefit you get. And the most important benefit of using JSX is it prevents injection attacks. So let's say we have created accepting username and password. Attacker try to perform cross-site scripting attack on our website, so he will not be able to do that easily if we use React.js, because whenever we pass any expression in curly braces, React.js converts it into string format. Even if attacker pass script tag in input field, that script tag will ultimately get converted into string formats. It will be just a string, so attacker will not be able to perform cross-site scripting. Another benefit of using JSX is JSX represents an objects. Okay, whenever we declare any HTML element inside of JSX, so that ultimately gets converts into React.js syntax. And if we see these two examples, so this is the JSX syntax and this is the pure React.js syntax. So now if we see the difference, code size of this syntax is more than this one. So imagine creating your website using this syntax. Every time if you want to create any element in your website, you have to follow this syntax. If you just want to follow React, instead of that, if you use JSX format, so you will be able to write this such a easy way. Although the JSX syntax ultimately gets converted into React.js syntax, but still for the developers, writing JSX syntax is more easier comparative to React.js core syntax. Okay, just to have more information about this, we can see this babel.io, and this is the converter that Babel is providing to convert any JSX code into React.js code. Here we have simply declared one heading tag, and you can see here this is the syntax of creating element in React.js. In our upcoming videos, we'll see how to integrate Babel into our project so that we can convert our JSX syntax into React.js syntax. And if you want to know more about JSX in depth, you can read these all articles, but basically they are giving the same information which we just saw, but in more descriptive way and more in-depth way. So if you want to read this article, this is really helpful and you can certainly get more idea about JSX. So I think that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.